doing here, that before we are creating any kind of a regression, then we are just creating a collection of dummy variables. So one dummy variable for me represents that the global financial crisis. It's way easier if we are just going to the business cycle clock of the European Commission, because in this case for the whole Eurozone we can get the available data. So we can get the recession period. So these are the slowdown periods identified by them. So these are the light gray color, and this is the dark gray color, which is for me quite the same like the other one, but these are the recession periods. So for this quarter of years or months, we are just adding ones. For the rest of them, it can be 0. For monthly data, for me, it worked much better if I was representing both. So whenever it was grayish, or what, I don't know what is this color here, maybe blue, it was 1. If I was working with quarterly data, it worked better if I just added recession. So recession from here, recession from here, recession from COVID, and otherwise not. But if I was adding or analyzing monthly data, then it was much better if everybody which is highlighted was there. For the US, National Bureau of Economic Research has business cycle dating committee, and you can see here that they have the same data set, just they have it for monthly data, and we can see that the gray areas here are representing recessions.
So I have a question regarding the dummy. So when we choose a dummy, for example, if let's assume the economy has a structural change. Let's move from the one region to the another region.
Yeah, that would be the regime change. So that's the second thing. So this one is just for recessions. Next thing is here. So the foreign exchange regime change, which is not happening within this sample, but otherwise, okay, let's go to my other database. North Macedonia. Yeah. So here we had this problem. Because if you are checking the IMF's RER annual report on exchange rates and many other things report, then you can see that they are defining monetary policy according to its objectives, so inflation targeting, exchange rate anchoring, or whatever they are doing, and also the regime. And in this case, you can use also this data for regime changes, what you mentioned, because in this case, I was able to create this monthly level of data to see that. So was there any kind of foreign exchange regime change? For me, it was floating or not floating. So it's quite simple. Or any upper ceiling was introduced or something like this.
So if the region keeps, so we need to keep the one, right, at the end of the study.
Yes.
For example, let's say 10 years ago, there was a change. Now the region is the same. So after this, we put one at the end of the study.
Yes. So it should represent that, okay, they were following fixed regime. Just you have to decide that which one will be 1 and which one will be 0. For me, it was when they were not following floating one. Or maybe floating one. I don't remember on this one. I should check the documentation, but one of them was always. We can check it easily because if you are just looking for the country, okay, who is country ID 1? Eurozone. So if Eurozone has no, yeah, this one is floating. So if fixed regimes are represented with ones, countries 3, it's Czechia. Yes, and they had this upper ceiling until 2017, what we can see here. So, yeah. So in this case, we are creating different setups. So monetary policy, inflation targeting, and you have to check everything. So if there any regime change, like openness of the balance of accounts, or monetary policy regime, exchange rate regime, if there was exogenous shock like recessions in the Eurozone or in the US, or what I also prefer highly, but we cannot see it in this data base, but no. There should be also one IMF. No IMF. Okay. Yeah, there is IMF. So for me, it's usually just 0 and 1s, but in this case, I was too lazy because also you can add. So these 0s and 1s are always added as exogenous variables to the regression, but also many times people are just adding. Not just 0s and 1s as exogenous variables, but for example, the amount of IMF loans which were provided. Or I was able to see oil price in the past, which was also quite popular. So in this case, it's just added the logarithm, and then it starts to behave like a dummy variable. So it will be easily convertible just to 0 and 1, but I don't know why. It's easier to audit, but recessions would behave the same way, so it doesn't matter practically that much. Or once I was able to see that people were using portfolio flows, also as exogenous variables. Instead of just converting to 0 and 1, they were just letting it to come in a raw matter, because you know that it can be negative or positive. So for dummy variable, it would complicate things way more. So, and also we still should have variable specific outlier.
So one question, yes. So if the dummy does not include the model, but there was a change, do we need to add it or no?
Yeah, we should. At the end of the day, dummies are working for you. So at least you should.
Sometimes it's not working.
Sometimes it's not working, then you can reject them. But there was this case when I analyzed Swiss franc, and I added the dummy variable into the model. It had no significance and so on, so I dropped it later on. But there were guys from the Swiss National Bank, the conference and the audience, and they were telling me that you should put it back. So yes. So in this case,
even if it is not significant.
Yes, even it's not significant, but if it's regime related, specifically to the country, then it's much better to keep it there, because this will be the first thing what reviewers will ask. That, did you test it? Because I cannot see it. And even if you had one version of the many different models that you were testing, maybe you were tested it, but after that rejected it because it had absolutely no contribution. In this case, it's must be kept there. So that's takeaway from this one. And if you need outlier detection, then it's the fastest thing. Okay, let's reload this one. I have to do something fast, because sometimes the variables itself So usually if you are just adding recession periods as dummy, then the variable related outliers will be also captured as a good approximation. But if still you can see sketchy values here and there or strange p-values, then it's also better to test that maybe there are other problems within the model. So let's see that if return and also I should do it for let's just do it for one. I don't want to write the whole thing for it. So it's smaller than the mean. Specific minus 30 to 6 multiplying the STD of string. So changes with less than 1% probability. So according to normal distribution, if we are multiplying the standard deviation with this number, then removing it from the mean, which would be so difficult. Okay, if I'm talking and writing scripts, sometimes it happens. Things are missing. So equals 1. So we have a threshold value for the really extreme number. So if we are under this 0.04, so 4 eurocent change within the US dollar exchange rate, then we are in extreme territory because it's less probable than 1%. So then we can see that, okay, dummy extreme aj equals -1.
So 2.3 is the 95 confidence interval?
Yes, indeed. So I'm just doing it in the positive way, and after that show you that how can we get, if we don't remember this 2-point thingy, then also we can extract it from functions nicely. This is +1, and in all the other cases this dummy will set to 0. Or maybe we don't have to differentiate between them, so in all the extreme changes it will be 1 and otherwise 0, so it's up to us that how we are defining this. Just now it looks better that if var dummy x, just soon I will run out of battery. So what we can see here that it performs well, so we can see some nice things from the 2008 crisis, some things from the Eurozone debt crisis, and maybe this is the COVID. So this can be also a good approach. Normin is the function, if I know well. Yep, this is just checking that 2.99. Yeah, this is the appropriate way. So 99% of interval will do the selection for us. This is how we can also get. There are other approaches described in the lecture notes. outlier and extreme data detection, but at the end of the day, this is the close enough approach. So you can read it. I recommend it because I spent so many times to do this, and also there are many functions here and there. But also there were testing views. But at the end of the day, whenever I had to work with regression data or data for regression, that was enough. Okay, so that's all for today. Next week, we have to talk about missing data, finally. And after that, we can start to work with Gauge models and other conditional things. So hopefully. Oh no. Okay, I have to stop this.